Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to put some shadows in. We've done our highlights, and now we're going to do basically a more sort of thicker dry brush on dry paper. So we're not going to make it as watery, but it's still obviously still be quite watery. You just want this blue to be thicker. And the concept of blue being in the shadows comes from the Impressionist artists, and it's quite a recent invention. The Impressionist, a mathematician, sort of scientist, realized that shadows weren't just grey, as had been previously thought, or in traditional painting, where you would add black to a colour, making a tone for shadows and white for tints. And you can see now you start your detailed work, and you can, the more detail you want to put in, you can sit and put in. I'm just going to do still quite a generalized amount of detail. And I'm following the original artist's work. And what I haven't told you up to this point is why we called this course the Modified Ready-Made. And basically that concept comes from an early 20th century artist called Marcel Duchamp, and he invented this idea of taking somebody else's craft or art and then changing it. So he started off by exhibiting a urinal, and all he did is just turned it upside down, so to make it his own work, and he renamed it into something interesting. Called it the Fountain. It's a bit of humour, and that was the birth of the ready-made and all the other artists that we've discussed. Worrell's concepts of taking other images from mass media, Jasper Johns also taking images from popular culture, such as targets, and then just the way he painted them was what made them his own. And Rauschenberg taking things from the newspapers as well, is another one we've discussed. And it all started with Duchamp and his ready-mades, and one of his most famous ones where he took a postcard of the Mona Lisa, and he took the postcard and he drew onto, with a black Koki pen onto the postcard, and drew onto Mona Lisa's face a moustache, and then he called it LHOOQ, which is part of the joke. What he said, he put a bit of humor into it, because in French, if you say LHOOQ fast, you will get it'll sound like the woman has a hot arse, and so that's the joke of it. Okay, so that's basically what we're doing. So we've taken here somebody else's artwork, in this case a print of the artwork, not the original, and we've modified it to make it our own. Very postmodernist, pop artish approach to mass media and what's happening with reproductions, and questioning which work is the original, etc., etc. Okay, another interesting work that was done was by Rauschenberg. One of his early works is he got hold of a drawing by one of the older generation at the time, which was a de Kooning. He's an abstract expressionist, and raised the same question. He took the drawing and he erased de Kooning's drawing as much as he could, till just absolutely nothing's left over of the drawing. Just white paper and a few smudges on it. And obviously that upset a lot of people. He's destroyed somebody else's art, and it opened the whole dialogue about ownership of the artwork. You can see how the blue now just gives it another dimension of depth. Makes forms a little bit more solid as well. And you can see this is the part where you spend much more of your time, although I'm still going quite fast. This way, if I want a bit of shadow and a bit of accentuation, I can put it on. Accentuate too much, come with a bit of water and just dull it down again. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do this one, and this one's got a lot of shadows, this balcony area. So I could use a bigger brush in this case again, just to speed it up, because I know what I want to do here. I want to get the shadows. So a bit of green is mixed into my blue, so I get in a bit of a green shadow. Let's get it away from there. Don't know why the green is still wet, because it shouldn't be. I've already put the red in, so that I'll get a bit of purple there. Okay, back to my little brush again. Get some detail. Get some brighter, cleaner blue. And as we go in here, I'm just following what the original artist, where he's put his shadows and accentuating them slightly. Okay, so there's shadows on that part. This one, put a little shadow around here too. And that's making a much darker blue here. So I just want this really to pop out. On our brick area, I won't be able to go too dark. grass and bring out this little plant a little bit so that you can see it against the background. And this pole is in a bit of shadow. And then these ones have a bit of shadow at the top because they're slightly underneath. Some shadow. Some very light shadow at the top. Side of the roof, it's already there. Some shadow there. And there we have the second one. With this technique, you just got to be careful you don't get too carried away. The paint becomes too opaque, unless you're going to start tackling already larger, and also get a lot more detail then. So if it's opaque, you don't lose the artist's pencil work underneath. If it's transparent, sorry. And if you go opaque, that's one of the dangers. And if you start doing that, then you have to do it everywhere and really work the drawing up until there's nothing left of the original. And I think in this particular one, I want to keep some of the original. Maybe in the next series I'll go more with opaque paint and really change the original's colours and go berserk. There we go. Then we have our third one. Okay, a little bit too much water there. Pick up the shadows here on the facade of the building. If you do make the shadows dark, just keep it consistent. It's usually a good thing to build up the shadows a bit thinner and then darker as you go. But in each case, letting it dry between coats. That way you'll get a nice opaque-ish feel to it. edge of the field. Bit of shadow in the bank. Some shadows on the trees. Yeah, and these things should be quite dark. It's difficult because I'm using the paint as a little bit more relieved. These, I could even come back with a pen and make those even darker. Just got to be careful here of losing everything in the sky. That little mark I made there, I wasn't too happy with it. So we just take it down a bit. The paint was getting a bit thick there. Don't forget, always remember the cloth. Cloth is, or earbud, or cotton wool to clean up what you've been doing, areas that you're not happy with. Obviously here I want to separate the roof a little bit from the distance. Lost control of my brush, wipe it off and go again. Okay, just if there's a light object, you need to have dark behind it, and if it's a dark object, you need to have light behind it. Just always remember that rule, and it'll save you a lot of pain. So this one is a great distance, and one of the things you've noticed is that objects get lighter and lighter in the distance. Hence, mountains, if you walk in the mountains, they look close. Of course, they're looking light, and what's light advances and what's dark recedes as a general principle. You can reverse it, as we've done in the one painting here. But generally in nature it's like that. And the reason why it's getting lighter as it goes into the distance, many people get confused with that. And it's just a simple thing of light refracting off the dust particles in the atmosphere. So really, if it hasn't rained for a long time and it's really a bit of wind's been blowing around, you'll see that buildings that, if you're looking across a valley at buildings or something, you'll see that they actually can really get light and tend to blend in with the landscape and disappear. So that's just, if you haven't noticed that, that's something to look at. You'll also notice that the sky gets lighter towards the horizon, something we discussed before, for the same reason. And there we go. And that is our drawing. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're successful. Thank you.